And then the really interesting part in her prophecy is that Peter and Paul will have an apparition. They will somehow proclaim the gospel, and then they will appoint, according to her, a new pope.
Have you ever imagined what it would be like if the world was plunged into darkness for 3 days in a row? No light, no electricity, no communication, nothing that could illuminate the darkness. What if on top of that, you had to face the horrors that lurk in the shadows, like demons, monsters, plagues, and fire from the sky? Sounds like a nightmare, doesn't it? But what if I told you that this could happen soon, and that it is predicted in an ancient prophecy that has been passed down for centuries? Do you believe it? Would you be prepared? In this video, we will reveal everything you need to know about the 3 days of darkness, the prophecy that could change the world. Stay tuned, because what you see next may be your only chance to survive humanity's greatest challenge. Well, the Bible was right about the 3 days of darkness. Apparently, that time is closer than you think, and we'll tell you why. In the Bible, darkness often symbolizes divine judgment and abandonment. It's God's way of expressing his displeasure and walking away. Think about it. Have you ever been in complete darkness? It's confusing, scary, and you feel emotionally shaken. Lasting for days, this is what the Egyptians faced. But this darkness was not like any other dusk. The Bible describes it as palpable darkness. Can you imagine a darkness so thick you could touch it? This otherworldly darkness was a clear sign that something beyond human understanding was happening. The biblical prophecy of the 3 days of darkness has aroused the attention and curiosity of many, raising questions about its possible current relevance. This theme goes beyond remembering the darkness that covered Egypt. It is about understanding a divine warning that may be important for us today, in an increasingly chaotic world. Some believe this prophecy is more than just a narrative. It can be a vision of what is to come. Are we really ready for such a significant event? And more importantly, what would this mean for our future? The prophecy of the 3 days of darkness is a supernatural revelation that would have been granted by God to some of his chosen ones to warn humanity about a divine punishment that is approaching as a consequence of the sins and apostasy of the world. According to prophecy, before the second coming of Christ and the beginning of a new era of peace and justice, the world will go through a great tribulation that will culminate in 3 days and 3 nights of total darkness, during which most of the population will be destroyed, exterminated by evil forces and natural cataclysms. Only the faithful who repent of their sins will be able to escape God's wrath and see the light again. The prophecy of 3 days of darkness is not a modern invention, but rather a tradition that dates back to the first centuries of Christianity. Some of the first testimonies that mention it are the writings of the fathers of the church, such as St. Jerome, St. John Chrysostom, St. Gregory the Great, and St. Bede, who interpreted some biblical passages such as the book of Exodus, the book of Revelation, and the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke as references to the 3 days of darkness. For example, in Matthew 24:29, Jesus says, "Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven will be shaken." In Mark 13:24-25, he repeats, "In those days, after that tribulation, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars will be falling from the sky, and the forces that are in the sky will be shaken." And in Luke 21:25-26, he adds, "There will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars. On earth, the anguish and perplexity of the nations at the roaring and the tossing of the sea. Men will faint from terror and from the expectation of the things that will come upon the world, for the forces of the heavens will be shaken." These words of Jesus were understood by many saints and theologians as a prophecy of the 3 days of darkness that would precede his glorious return. Throughout history, Several mystics and seers claimed to have received visions and messages about the 3 days of darkness, confirming and detailing the prophecy. Among them, we can mention Saint Padre Pio of Pietrelcina in the 20th century, and the French mystic Marie-Julie Jahenny in the 20th century. These testimonies, although not considered dogmas of faith by the Catholic Church, are worthy of respect and attention as they come from virtuous, pious people and recognized for their holiness. Furthermore, they harmonize with the scriptures and the tradition of the Church, which has always taught that God is merciful but also just, and that he punishes sinners and rewards the righteous. Therefore, we cannot ignore or despise the prophecy of the 3 days of darkness, but rather prepare for it with prayer, penance, and trust in God. But when will it happen? What are the signs that precede it, and what to do to survive? So that you can understand more clearly and quickly the signs that surround us in challenging times like the ones we are living in, it is essential to be aware of the prophecies that are being fulfilled. Many still don't realize the magnitude of what is happening around us, and that's why I decided to offer a special gift to all channel subscribers, an exclusive digital ebook entitled The Secret Behind the Holy Bible. This book is an unmissable opportunity to access impactful revelations about biblical prophecies that will open your eyes to current reality. Don't let this unique chance pass you by. The knowledge contained in this ebook could change the way you see events around you. The process to get your gift is quick and simple. Just click on the link available in the first pinned comment to download it immediately. But be careful, we only have a few units available and they are running out quickly. Don't delay your decision. Guarantee your copy now before the ebook is taken down. Take advantage of this exclusive opportunity and be prepared for what's to come. How do you know if the 3 days of darkness are close to happening? What are the signs we should watch for, and when will they occur? These are questions that many ask themselves and that do not have an easy or definitive answer. After all, the prophecy of the 3 days of darkness is a mystery of God that only He fully knows. However, some of the seers who received the prophecy gave some clues and indications about the signs and dates preceding the great event. Let's see some of them. One of the most cited signs is that of the Great War, which will involve the entire world and which will be the most terrible and bloody in history. This war would be the beginning of the Great Tribulation and would be provoked by a worldwide revolution against the church, religion, and social order. In this war, there would be persecutions, massacres, apostasies, heresies, blasphemies, sacrileges, impiety, and abominations that would seriously offend God and His law. This war would also be marked by the invasion of Europe by a Muslim army, led by an Antichrist who would oppose Christ and His church. This Antichrist would be a false prophet who would deceive many with his miracles and wonders, and who would demand worship and the mark of the beast in exchange for peace and prosperity. This war would last about 3.5 years, and would end with the victory of the faithful over the Antichrist and his allies, with the help of angels who would descend from heaven to fight. Another important sign is that of the great cross that will appear in the sky and will be seen by all the inhabitants of the earth. This cross would be a sign of hope for the righteous and a sign of terror for the wicked. This cross would announce the arrival of the 3 days of darkness and would be accompanied by celestial voices that would warn humanity about what is to come. This cross would remain in the sky for 7 days and then disappear. A third sign is that of the great earthquake that will shake the entire world and cause much damage and deaths. This earthquake would be the beginning of the 3 days of darkness and would be followed by a great silence that would envelop the earth. This earthquake would also be the signal to light the holy candles, which would be the only source of light during the 3 days of darkness. These candles would have the power to ward off demons and protect the faithful. The candles were to be lit before sunset on the day of the earthquake, and were not to be extinguished until dawn on the 4th day. A fourth sign is that of the great miracle that will happen at the end of the 3 days of darkness, and which will be the manifestation of Christ in all His glory and majesty. This miracle would be the resurrection of the righteous who died during the tribulation and the transformation of the living who survived the 3 days of darkness. These righteous people would receive glorious bodies and supernatural gifts, and would be caught up to heaven, where they would see the face of God and participate in the feast of the elect. This miracle would also be the purification of the earth and the renewal of creation, which would be free from sin and death and would receive new beauty and harmony. This miracle would mark the beginning of the kingdom of Christ on earth, which would last 1,000 years and would be characterized by peace, justice, love, and holiness. These are some of the signs and dates that the prophecy of the 3 days of darkness reveals to us. But are they already happening? Are we living in the end times? Are the 3 days of darkness near? This is what we will analyze in the analysis of current signals block. Analysis of current signals. After knowing the signs and dates that precede the 3 days of darkness, the question arises, are they already being fulfilled? Are we living in the end times? Are the 3 days of darkness near? To answer these questions, we need to look at the world we live in and see if it fits the description of the prophecy. Let's analyze some points. The first point is that of the Great War that would involve the entire world and would be provoked by a worldwide revolution against the church, religion, and social order. Is this already happening? Well, if we look at the current situation, we can see that there are many conflicts and tensions between nations that can escalate into a global war at any moment. Some examples are the nuclear crisis between the United States and North Korea, the civil war in Syria and Iraq, the terrorist threat from the Islamic State and other radical groups, the territorial dispute between China and its neighbors, political instability in Venezuela and other Latin American countries, the migration crisis in Europe and the Middle East, and the economic rivalry between the great world powers. Furthermore, we can see that there is a growing hostility against the church, religion, and social order on the part of movements that promote atheism, materialism, feminism, abortion, homosexuality, gender ideology, communism, socialism, globalism, and other ideologies and practices contrary to natural law and divine law. These movements seek to destroy the Christian values that sustain Western civilization and impose a new world order based on rebellion against God and the slavery of man. These movements are also responsible for persecutions, massacres, apostasies, heresies, blasphemies, sacrileges, impiety, and abominations that seriously offend God and His church, and that call for revenge from heaven. Therefore, we can conclude that the sign of the Great War is already being fulfilled, and that we are experiencing the Great Tribulation announced by the prophecy. The second point is the invasion of Europe by a Muslim army led by an Antichrist who would oppose Christ and His church. Is this already happening? Well, if we look at the current situation, we can see that there is a silent invasion of Europe by millions of Muslim immigrants who arrive on the continent via different routes, fleeing war, poverty, or persecution in their countries of origin. These immigrants, for the most part, do not integrate into European culture and society, but rather form ghettos and enclaves where they practice their religion and law without respecting local laws and customs. Some of them even engage in acts of violence, terrorism, vandalism, rape, pedophilia, and other criminal activities that generate fear, hatred, anger, and division among Europeans. These immigrants are also manipulated by political, religious, and economic leaders who use them as instruments to destabilize and conquer Europe, and to implement a globalist agenda aimed at destroying the continent's Christian identity. These leaders, in turn, could be precursors or collaborators of the Antichrist, who would be the supreme leader of this Muslim invasion and who would present himself as the Messiah expected by Muslims, the Mahdi. This Antichrist, according to the prophecy, would be a false prophet who would deceive many with his miracles and wonders and who would demand worship and the mark of the beast in exchange for peace and prosperity. This Antichrist would also be the mortal enemy of Christ and His church and would try to exterminate all who opposed him. Therefore, we can conclude that the sign of the invasion of Europe is already being fulfilled, and that we are facing the imminent appearance of the Antichrist. The third point is that of the great cross that would appear in the sky, and that would be seen by all the inhabitants of the earth. Has this already happened? Well, if we look at the current situation, we can see that there are some astronomical phenomena that can be interpreted as preludes or symbols of the Grand Cross. Some examples are the total solar eclipse that occurred on August 21, 2017, and was seen by millions of people in the United States and other countries. The planetary alignment that occurred on September 23, 2017, and which was considered by some to be the reproduction of John's vision in the book of Revelation, chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, where he says, "A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman dressed as the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. The comet that was seen in July 2020 and was the brightest in the last 23 years, and the alignment of Jupiter and Saturn, which occurred on December 21, 2020, and was the closest in the last 800 years. These phenomena, although they are not the Grand Cross itself, may be signs that it is close to appearing and that we should keep an eye on the sky. Furthermore, we can see that there are some testimonies from people who claim to have seen or heard the Grand Cross or the celestial voices that accompany it. These testimonies, although not official or proven, may be indications that God is communicating with some of his chosen ones and that he is preparing us for the great event. Therefore, we can conclude that the sign of the Grand Cross has not yet been fulfilled, but that it is very close to being fulfilled and that we must prepare for it. These recommendations are based on the testimonies of mystics and seers who received the prophecy and who left us some advice and guidance to face this great challenge. Let's see what they are. The first recommendation is to have blessed candles at home and to light them before sunset on the day of the big earthquake, and not to blow them out until dawn on the fourth day. These candles would be the only source of light during the 3 days of darkness, and would have the power to ward off demons and protect the faithful. These candles should be kept in a safe and secret place, and should only be used for that purpose. They should be enough to illuminate the entire house, and should be distributed among family members. The second recommendation is to close the doors and windows of the house, and not look outside during the 3 days of darkness. This would be to avoid seeing the horrors that lurk in the shadows, such as demons, monsters, plagues, and fire from heaven that would try to deceive people. This would also be to avoid being contaminated by the pestilential air that would invade the atmosphere and cause illness and death. This would also be to avoid being hit by meteors, lightning, thunder, and earthquakes that will shake the earth and cause destruction and panic. Doors and windows should be sealed with salt and holy water, and should be covered with dark cloths or thick curtains. The doors and windows should only be opened on the fourth day, when the sunlight shines again, and when the voice of Christ is heard announcing the end of the 3 days of darkness. The third recommendation is to pray and meditate during the 3 days of darkness, and not to be distracted by anything that could disturb communion with God. This would be to strengthen the faith, hope, and charity of the faithful, and to ask for God's mercy, forgiveness, and protection. This would also be to praise and thank God for his goodness, justice, and providence. This would still be to offer to God the sufferings, anguish, and temptations that would be experienced during the 3 days of darkness, and to join the merits, pains, and glory of Christ. Prayers and meditations should be frequent, varied, and adapted to the circumstances and needs of each person. Prayers and meditations should be shared with family, friends, and neighbors who are in the same house, and should be extended to brothers and sisters who are in other houses. The fourth recommendation is to have food and water at home, and to consume them in moderation and caution during the 3 days of darkness. This would be to maintain the health, strength, and endurance of the faithful, and to avoid hunger, thirst, and weakness. This would also be to thank God for the gift of life and the sustenance he gives us. This would also be to share goods with those in need who were in the same house, and to help the injured and sick who needed help. Food and water should be natural, simple and wholesome, and should be free from contamination, spoilage, and adulteration. Food and water should be enough to feed the entire family, and should be distributed fairly and generously. The fifth and final recommendation is to have confidence and joy in your heart, and not to be afraid or sad during the 3 days of darkness. This would be to show confidence in the promise of God, who told us, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, and I will help you, and I will uphold you with my right hand." Faithful, Isaiah 41:10. This would also be to show the joy in the hope of God, who told us, "These things I say unto you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full." John 15:11. This would still be to show love for God, who told us, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength." Mark 12:30. Trust, joy, and love should be expressed with words, gestures, and attitudes that honor and glorify God, and that build and comfort the brothers. Confidence, joy, and love should be nourished by reading the Bible, meditating on the mysteries, contemplating wonders, and imitating the virtues of God. Trust, joy, and love should be witnessed with courage, patience, humility, meekness, kindness, faithfulness, purity, obedience, gratitude, mercy, peace, and holiness of life. These are some of the recommendations we can give to the faithful who want to survive the 3 days of darkness, should they happen. But as we have already said, prophecy is a mystery of God that only He knows whether it will be fulfilled or not, and when and how it will be fulfilled. Therefore, the most important thing is to be prepared. Don't forget to download our book, The Secret Behind Biblical Prophecies. There are already more than 500,000 copies sold, and we are at the last units, so don't waste time and enjoy. I guarantee that you will acquire a lot of knowledge after reading this sensational book, written with great care and love for all the subscribers of our channel, completely based on the Holy Bible. The link is in the first pinned comment. If you enjoyed this content, we would love to hear from you. Please be sure to express your thoughts, as your feedback is extremely valuable to us. Click the like button to show us that the video was useful and interesting for you. Additionally, we ask that you take a moment to leave a comment below. Your honest opinion helps us better understand what we're doing right and where we can improve. We want to know what you liked most, which points were most impactful for you, and how this video contributed to your knowledge or reflection. Now, if for some reason you didn't like the video, we want to know too. Your critical vision is essential so that we can continue improving our content. Click the dislike button if you think the video did not meet your expectations. But please don't stop there. Leave a detailed comment explaining what didn't work for you. Your constructive criticism is an important tool for us, as it allows us to adjust our work and offer videos that are increasingly aligned with the interests and needs of our audience. If there's anything specific you'd like us to cover differently, or if there's any aspect you think could have been better, we'd be so grateful to hear about it. If you appreciate our work and want to continue following content like this, we have a special invitation for you. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. When you sign up, you join a community of people interested in exploring relevant and inspiring topics. Furthermore, by activating the notification bell, you ensure that you will always be the first to know when new videos are published. This means you won't miss any new content and will always be up to date with the latest discussions, thoughts, and information we have to offer. More than just watching, you can play an important role in spreading this content. If you found the video valuable, please share it with your friends, family, co-workers, and anyone else you think could benefit from it. By sharing, you are helping to expand the reach of this content, allowing more people to have access to the information and reflections presented here. Every share makes a huge difference and helps build a network of engaged and well-informed people. Finally, we want to express our deep gratitude to you. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, for interacting with us, and for being part of our community. Your support is what motivates us to continue creating and sharing content that we believe is important and impactful.